What if part of the problem with dealing with insider cyber threats is that many assumptions that security practitioners have about insider threats might incur more risk? In this video, we will expose some of these false assumptions. Drop your thoughts in the comments or give us a like if you've held some of these false assumptions. False assumption number 1. Defending against insider threats means not trusting your employees. This is probably the most common false assumption and stems from a lack of clear definition as to what an insider actually is within an information security context, and not balancing that definition against the value and risks of data that an organization may process. To break this assumption, we need to be clear that anyone with valid user or domain admin credentials is an insider to your organization. There are the obvious employees, contractors, vendors, and interns, but, less obviously, malicious actors that have harvested legitimate credentials from an internal or external source. Inadvertent incidents stemming from poor governance are as much a part of insider threat as intentionally malicious incidents are. False assumption number 2. An organization can successfully defend against insider threats. The only 100% secure environment is one without users or remote connections. Since insider threats are by definition about user accounts, the best defense should not start with deploying controls. It is about assessing the risks at various privilege levels, managing residual risk at each privilege level, defining risk appetite and acceptable loss, and then ensuring proper oversight and governance of preventative security control objectives, supported by liberal use of detective controls. False assumption number 3. An incident originating from an internal threat is a completely different type of incident from a more traditional malware incident. Actually, you should view insider threats as a subcategory of normal incident response, but one that needs to be managed in advance rather than at the point of response, as they are more about controlling residual risk within a risk appetite than simply keeping bad actors out. Insider threats are the linkage between cyber incidents and privacy incidents. Because the definition of an insider includes anyone with valid user or domain admin credentials, a traditional cyber incident becomes an insider incident the moment that valid credentials are obtained. For most traditional insiders, this means that an insider threat exists from the moment that credentials are issued until the credentials are deactivated unless other controls are in place. Malware actors can obtain valid credentials externally, obtain or elevate privileges through exploiting a vulnerability, or gain the same user context as user credentials that are in use on an endpoint at the moment of successful installation of malware. Once legitimate credentials are misused or otherwise obtained and access to sensitive data occurs, your organization is likely going to lose something unless data loss prevention controls specific to the type of data obtained are in place. What does this mean? The way that valid credentials are misused will determine if the outcome of the incident will be a cyber or privacy incident. The key questions are A. How are credentials managed? B. If credentials are misused, does the existing controls landscape limit the residual risk of loss within your organization's risk appetite? C. Will preventive controls in place prior to the compromise prevent the loss? And D. Do you have the right detective controls in place prior to the compromise, including logging to determine if a compromise of credentials and/or data loss actually occurred? False assumption number 4. Zero trust can defeat the insider threat. Often mistakenly viewed as a magic elixir against insider threats, zero trust can only help identify and manage residual risk. Zero trust doesn't by itself completely remove residual risk of access to data, particularly from an enrolled device that has been compromised while in use. For example, zero trust also can't define your organization's risk appetite for you or ensure that the proper governance to ensure desired control objectives are being met that are consistent with an organization's zero trust policies. Zero trust without ongoing governance, particularly with the deployment at scale, may result in higher risk outcomes than traditional approaches. Governisto will be hosting various half-day on-site seminars in 2024 in a number of US and Latin American cities, with topics that include insider cyber threats. Don't miss out. If interested, contact us today through our website at governisto.com or send an email to schedule a conversation at contactus@governisto.com.